Mr. Boss.
I have the terror.
Oh, he's great
Sitting
if
by
he's doing
somebody
it.
at a Republican Central Committee.
You know, I'll talk to Steve, see if he's got anybody. If he's interested,
Run for that seat. And during my retirement, I went out and stood in the blocks.
I think Chrissy.
He was screaming and yelling and throwing.
Oh, I know.
Oh, really?
Like, start crying, beat me up. I'm like, isn't that?
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen.
Did you see that thing from UMSL?
No, yeah.
Is that something y'all are interested in?
She would have to be, she would have to change, just change his mind.
Oh, that's for people.
Run for mayor.
Can't, he makes too much money as a,
State Farm Ranch, yeah.
and he's gotta make a whole lot more as we go forward, so.
Oh, yeah, yeah, he's got a good business. Okay.
Ready to roll?
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, are you using all those pens?
Boots on the ground.
No, I'm not using any of those.
Can I have one of them?
Hey.
We are going to conduct this evening. The reason for the work session is, I guess, because of Tall Tree recently, and also back a couple of years ago when we had the Missouri Bluffs, and really almost anything involving planning and zoning. The master plan, you know, the term master plan and what it is comes up very, very frequently. And I felt that it was really important for us as a council to maybe be re-informed, re-educated.
The conditional use request.
Oh, that's Roger Ellis there. Planning and zoning. But anyway, I felt it would be important for us to just have an overview by the administration about the history and the background of the master plan. Second of all, what the ordinance calls for it to be done, and then the process for arriving at what we have. And I know there's a review process coming up here next year. So we will start out. Steve, do you have something to start with?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you'll put it back up on the screen.
There we go.
I'm going to just start out, I'll be brief, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, and then I want Rory, if it's okay with you, to talk a little bit about how the master plan fits into all the legal requirements of planning and zoning. And then I think, Robert, you're going to go ahead and talk about the process of how we get this started and kind of how the whole thing happens. Some of you have been involved before, and some of you have probably been involved 2 or 3 times. So others, it'll be your first time, and I think that's why it's important that we go ahead and maybe talk about this. Oh, come on.
Is it turned on?
There we go.
There you go. I'll click it for you.
Guess we're done here.
Thinking now we're too many slides.
Paper copy. Do you want a paper?
There we go.
Okay. Again, a little bit about the history, and first thing I think you all need to understand is cities in St. Charles County have always been, or in the last 50 years, have been more important than cities in St. Louis County. And that's because in St. Louis County in 1954, they created something called the Metropolitan Sewer District, MSD. And what it did is took all the various sewer systems and water systems and put them under one entity, okay? 20 years later, St. Charles County government tried to do the same thing. They tried to create a MSD in which all the various water plants that the city owned and Duckett Creek owned and whatever, they tried to put them all under one umbrella, okay? Like St. Louis County, sent it to the voters, and it was defeated. The cities were against it. They wanted to, keep their plant and have control. So that's what happened. But then, 9 years later, this is what the county looked like. The municipal boundaries were in gray. That's in 1983. 40 years later, the municipal boundaries are in red. Okay? Unlike if you had a map like this of St. Louis County, you'd find there really wouldn't be that much of a change. In South County, for instance, South County was developed pretty much like Mr. Baker's district is now. It was in unincorporated St. Louis County. There were no cities to compete against. And of course, that's what happened, at least in that area. You can see there, back in the 1970s.
Next slide.
How do I get to the next slide?
Here we go.
What is this thing for? Okay, and again, we talked a little bit about this a few weeks ago. We've got sewer systems and are pretty, depend a lot on drainage areas and the various creek basins. So we look at sewer and water. That's kind of how they develop. Now, if you look at that Darden Creek Basin, if you could look at that, Darden Creek also goes into St. Peter's, but St. Peter's only provided sewer so far. And then below, in the southern part of your district, Dave, southern part of your district, that was Duckett Creek. And if you remember, Duckett Creek actually built the plant there at Weldon Springs and actually pumped the sewage over the watershed line to there. So that area, South St. Peter's, South O'Fallon, it was in Darden Creek, but north of Highway 40, that could have been developed as unincorporated St. Charles County. But the fact is, it wasn't. And I guess we can talk to our developer friends and ask them why. But I assume a lot of it is because the master plans for the cities gave them more leeway than the master plan for the county. Okay, and that is what it is. That's already happened. There's nothing we can do about it. But you look at Peru Creek Basin. That's basically the city of Wentzville. Mr. Swanson, the city. They've actually crossed Highway into the Darden Creek Basin, and have incorporated those areas, and they're pumping the sewage over the hill back into their Peru Creek Basin. Okay, and then you got Quiver River Basin up there, and there is nothing in terms of sewer or water there except for just a package plan, I think, that Tom Hughes has for the thing right outside of St. Paul.
Yeah.
But basically, that's an area that, and again, when we do a master plan, I think that area is going to pretty much depend on whether or not it has, whether it has a sewage plant someday or whether it doesn't. And then finally, the Femisage Creek Basin there on the bottom, as I said a couple weeks ago, that is never going to have a sewer plant. It's too hilly, it's too rocky, it's too forested. That is going to be 5-acre lots for the next 100 years. That's my prediction. So what you really want to look at is those creek basins. And there's some areas, again, where that people have to go to the cities if they want to develop. But there are other areas they have a choice. They can stay in the county, they can go to a city, and when you do a master plan, it definitely has some consequences. John, can you do the next slide? That's just the water service area again. You can see that the cities have an area that they serve, but there's also a large area served by Public Water District number 1 and 2 and a Missouri American. And again, those areas that are light and dark brown, those areas could have been developed in St. Charles County, but generally, except for Mr. Baker's district, they weren't. Actually, Weldon Springs could have been developed in the county. Instead, they went ahead and created a city. So next slide. And again, that's just the sanitary, that's where the various sanitary sewers. You can see, again, St. Peter's goes only so far, but then there's other parts of St. Peter's that are in St. Peter's, but not served by their sanitary sewers. That whole area that's green there could have been developed in unincorporated areas. Most of it was not. Further down, you can see Highway in Darden Creek there, the slashed area. That's the area that isn't served now, but will be when Duckett Creek gets a plant. And once again, when you look up north of St. Paul up there, there's basically no service there, none in the floodplain and none in FEMSH area. And these are the sort of things you need to think of when you do a master plan. Next slide. Again, this was the land use map in 1973 when the people decided not to have an MSD. And you can see that, it's a whole lot different than today. John, go to the next one. That's our current land use map. Question for you all, when we start working on the master plan, is what is it going to look like 10, 20 years from now? Again, I think that's the last slide I have, isn't it, John? Yeah, I think, again, I just show you this because what you do with a master plan, you can think in terms of what you think would be ideal. But in a sense, people who want to develop their land are going to have a choice. And they can stay in the county or they can go to a city. And I think you need to keep that in mind. I think you need to keep in mind that, that we need, and I think one of the strengths of this county is we have all types of neighborhoods for all types of people. And, I think the biggest problem right now, as far as housing is concerned, is young people who are just starting out. And I think I've talked to some of you about it. We got young people who are just starting out and they can't find a starter home. Those starter homes that used to go for $150,000 or $250,000. So, when you think about zoning, think about, okay, where are my kids and grandkids? Where are they going to live? Are they going to have to, go to St. Louis County to find something that's affordable? Or are they going to be able to find a starter home somewhere in St. Charles County? And I think we all agree there need to be somewhere. And when you do a master plan, you got to have some direction where you think that somewhere ought to be. So that's all I have, and look forward to working with you on it. I'll let Rory go ahead and take over, and then Robert. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Good evening. So the county executive asked me to step in and give you a little bit of an overview about what does the law actually require when it comes to master plans, what's the effect of master plans on a county's zoning and its processes. So we're going to answer 3 questions. What does the county charter require? What do the county ordinances require? And then what are the relevant cases in this area? So the county charter requires certain things. First of all, the idea behind the master plan, according to the charter, is that the council sets forth policy regarding the social, governmental, economic, and physical development of the county. And it shall include, and the word is bolded, recommendations for the following things. We'll get a little bit more into that, but these again are recommendations within the plan that deal with the most desirable use of land within the county, the most desirable density of population in various parts of the county, a system of principal thoroughfares, highways, streets, and other public ways, adequate drainage facilities, general location extent of public utilities, including sewage, as the county executive was talking about, and then such other matters as may be beneficial to the county. So again, it's a master plan, it's a comprehensive plan, it's something supposed to be giving you guys an overview, it gives the departments an overview, gives the citizens an overview of what the master plan, of how zoning and development will occur in the county. So the county charter requires that it's designed to assure the coordinated development of the county and promote the general welfare and prosperity of its people. And it shall be reviewed no less than once every 5 years, which is why we're here today, because this is one of those 5-year periods. We're kicking off the process tonight. The county ordinance, section 405077, has a general principle that the zoning district maps shall be in accordance with the master plan of the county, okay? Bearing in mind that, again, the master plan is a series of recommendations for how zoning should take place. Next slide, thank you. Most relevant case law, again, we've got cases out there that are, this is a 2012 case. The next case I talk about is going to be from 1980. This is an area of the law that's pretty much well settled now. The master plan, again, is a comprehensive plan that's a guide to development. It is not an instrument that controls land use. Okay, so oftentimes when you all are considering rezoning requests, the question comes up, well, our master plan doesn't allow for that here, or it doesn't recommend this stuff here. The master plan isn't the binding document on you. As the legislative body, you get to make a decision when the question comes before you a second time. So again, Trem versus St. Louis County. This is a 1980 case. And again, it was a person that believed that a county zoning decision in St. Louis County was incorrect, that they had not followed their own master plan. And so the court looked at it and said, again, the plan is general guideline to zoning within the county, but it's flexible and it's not intended to control zoning decisions on specific parcels of land. And the question might come up, well then why? Why do you have a master plan? And the reason is because of the type of body that the county council is. So you're a legislative body, you're not a court of law, you're not the executive branch. You get to answer a question differently another time that it's presented to you, okay? So that's what the court said. One legislative decision can't bar future consideration of the same question. If the council can legislate in anticipation of the needs of the community, obviously it has the power to change its mind and come up with a different decision depending on the needs of the community at the time it's asked, after the master plan is being developed. That's my presentation. Any questions? Okay, thank you all.
Rory, appreciate it.
I want to back up. Let me see if I want to. Yep. All right. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about how master plans are prepared. And if I could just remark a little bit on what you just stated, Rory. It reminds me of a situation when I worked on the master plan for the city of St. Charles in the 1990s. So when the master plan was prepared, it was prepared in the mid-1990s. And at that time, this was after, obviously, the flood of 1993. So the Missouri River floodplain for the city of St. Charles was designated for future parks and open space. We had no way of anticipating what would come next. So the state of Missouri passed casino gambling, or riverboat gambling, and soon we had an application for the city of St. Charles for rezoning along the riverfront to accommodate riverboat gambling. And I guess the city of St. Charles could have said, nope, it's not in our master plan. We're not going to approve this riverboat because the master plan says no, that's parks and open space. But I just bring this up as another situation is that it's difficult sometimes to anticipate what's going to happen. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the master plan process, which is intended to be a logical process to do just that, though, is to anticipate what the demand is going to be countywide and a logical land use plan in order to accommodate growth and development. And along the lines of what the county executive said, the presumption is that we can find a place for everyone to live who wants to live and work in St. Charles County. And that's part of that's one presumption of the master plan. There's two different sides to the master plan. There's the descriptive side, and then there's what I would call the prescriptive side. The descriptive side says the way things are and the way things are likely to become. The prescriptive side says how we should become. How do we want to be? How do we want to grow? How do we want to thrive? Mostly what I'm going to talk about tonight is the descriptive side. But the first point I wanted to make is that under the county's charter, there's a master plan steering committee. And the master plan steering committee, which by the way is composed of very specific classes of folks who are appointed to the master plan steering committee, they take into account these conditions and trends that I'm about to talk about. They take in and prepare goals and objectives and strategies using a public input and make a recommendation to this body, to the county council. So ultimately, the master plan could or should be adopted by the county council, but you have the assistance of both the county staff and the master plan steering committee working along with the input from the public as well. I'm not going to go over all of these individually, but I just want you to know that the master plan has certain components that are all interrelated, and the first two are population and economy, and the basis for the master plan is the demographic and economic trends. So population and employment are drivers for housing, transportation, parks and open space, community facilities, and ultimately land use. And so we spend a lot of time trying to determine or forecast what our future population and employment trends will be over the planning horizon. The current master plan is planning horizon through 2030, so the next master plan would probably be 2035. So in 2018, when we prepared these population projections, the 2020 census hadn't come out yet, but I want to just give you a sense that there's a lot of input that goes behind the population forecasts that we prepare. The primary basis was what was called the cohort survival model. And so what that means is we look at all the population pyramid, all the different groups of cohorts of age groups, male and female, and we figure the overall births and deaths. And that's our natural increase in population. And then we add on top of that migration to St. Charles County. So in the past 10 years, about a third of the population growth here has been through natural increase, more births and deaths, and about 2/3 of the population increase has been through migration, mostly from within the region. We're also looking at housing. Given population and household changes, what is expected in terms of housing demand? This shows you residential permits over a period of time since 2010. And for instance, population household size, St. Charles County is 2.58 persons per household, but in 2000 it was 2.76. So it doesn't sound like a big difference, but when you multiply that out by the number of homes, there really, over time, there's really a huge difference in the size of the household and on how many houses are going to be in demand. And that gets me to a point I just thought I would share with you, in that our bread and butter is kind of a single-family residential zoning and single-family households and single-family housing. But there's not necessarily a one-to-one correlation between minimum lot size and actually the density of single-family subdivisions. It may surprise you and actually surprise me at the number here, but if you look at the R1E zoning districts in unincorporated St. Charles County, we looked at between 2000 and 2013, all the rezonings that took place during that period of time for R1 to the R1E zoning district, and what the built density was, the number of dwellings per acre. So R1E zoning district, it's minimum of 7,000 square feet lot size. So someone will naturally say, okay, you could build 6 houses there. Do we really want 6 houses per acre? But in reality, they're only building 1.83. So a third of what that minimum lot size would imply. And so this is one of the reasons that the master plan talks about residential densities rather than strictly speaking what zoning districts are recommended. And I'll give you a quick example. Lakeview Farm subdivision on Towers Road. This, in my mind, was one of the most densest single-family residential subdivisions for R1E district that I can remember. And it's about 3 homes per acre as it was actually built. And you may remember Autumn Hollow subdivision, the back portion are single-family homes. And the way it was eventually redesigned was that there's about 2 homes per acre. This was actually, they came in, it was a little bit more dense when it was first submitted. And then they came back and they said, well, we'd like to change the design a little bit because you'll see now that every home backs up to green space or water bodies or trees. And they felt that those lots were a lot more attractive for home buyers than what the original design. Also, home prices and home values as a fit for jobs and income is taken into consideration. And then finally, employment. I'm not going to go over all of these charts, but I just want to give you the sense that we're looking in detail at jobs as a driver for future land use and for transportation. Because as of 2018, 62% of the residents, actually that's workers, work outside of the county. 62% of the workers living in St. Charles County work outside of the county. So that equates to commuting. And that also is related, obviously, to future transportation needs. So the county charter calls for the county master plan to include let me make sure I get this right, recommendations for a system of principal thoroughfares, highways, streets, and other public ways. So this is, again, an element of the county's master plan. Finally, I wanted to let you know that our master plan is not just a static PDF document, that's a paper document that sits on a shelf somewhere, but we also have it in this interactive format online so that anyone who goes online can dive into it to the level of their interest. I think it's actually a great tool for schools and school kids if you want to learn about how all of these different elements are interrelated. I think it's actually really amazing. And in fact, it won in 2020 an Outstanding Plan Making Award from the American Planning Association of the St. Louis section. One other thing I would note is that you'll see this map has colors not just for unincorporated areas, but for the incorporated areas too. The reason is that we're looking at land use as a whole countywide. We're the only organization, we're the only jurisdiction doing that. Everyone else is looking at their own piece of the puzzle. And we're not trying to dictate what happens within the municipalities, but we do look at the big picture because we're part of St. Charles County. We're not in a standalone. We're part of the county's economy and land use system. So we're trying to look at this as a whole. And anyway, I thought I would mention that. If you have any questions?
Yeah, just a quick review. Could you go back to almost the very beginning?
Yeah.
Where it says the process, the other, yeah, right there.
Okay.
So in other words, starting next year, right? I mean, this will be, the appointments and stuff will be made this year, at the end of this year. And they'll be comprised of 2 county council members, 2 representatives from the county executive staff, community development department, and then 11 citizens. And those folks will meet, and they will look at the master plan, review it, and make changes, make recommendations. How does that work?
Yes, although I'm not certain whether, there is a master plan steering committee, so I'd have to talk to Roy and others to find out whether those steering committee members are still in place or whether the new ones need to be appointed. I'm not really sure how that works exactly, but once we have a master plan steering committee composed, typically they will meet over a period of time and they will review, have inputs from, for instance, county staff, potentially consultant or consultants, the public, and compose a recommendation for the county council. Additionally, the Planning and Zoning Commission plays a role as well.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, I sat on it in the last time. Mike Klinghammer and I were the council members 5 years ago when we did this. And community development does a great job of bringing everybody together and walking them through this. And it was great. I don't know that I remembered the water basins laid out the way that Steve walked through it. We probably did that, but it's been 5 years. So as they say, I've slept since then. But it was interesting to go back through and kind of look at different areas of the county of where we started looking at, hey, we expect development to happen here, here, here. How do you find out about, like, we didn't know 5 years ago, obviously, Duckett Creek's expansion plans. We didn't know where they were going to be doing that and when they were going to be doing it. How do you find out about those changes that are going to affect future expansion plans?
We now have a plan for Duckett Creek's expansion. So we do have a long-term now plan for Duckett Creek. Also, representatives from utilities companies will often sit on the master plan, or there'll be a subcommittee, for instance, the utilities subcommittee, and they will provide technical input on where they expect to grow. Now, it's kind of a two-way process because they're looking at what we're doing in terms of land use and population and employment to see where a sewage treatment plant might be best. But there's always this axiom that, sewage is going to flow downhill, so they're going to be putting that sewage treatment plant on the lowest part of the basin that they can so that they can serve all of the growth and development by gravity rather than trying to pump it over hill, which is way more expensive and costly.
But it looks like in the new ones, they're actually going to start actually pumping on part of the Duckett Creek plan?
Yeah, so I just wanted to add, so Duckett Creek was on this master plan steering committee 5 years ago.
Yep.
And part of the discussion was with the utilities about their plans. What are they looking at? Are they seeing growth opportunities, necessary needs, things like that in different areas? And the question for Duckett Creek at that time was, do we see Highway N corridor as this growth corridor that we expect? We're all expecting this. What's the plans? Duckett Creek at the time didn't have anything solid. They told us at the time they were looking at possibilities of doing something in that area. And so we take that into account that, okay, they're thinking about it. They don't have anything solid. But we need to anticipate that this growth is going to occur. The utilities are anticipating this growth. And so that impacted the land use plan as part of what we eventually came up with in that area. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Yeah, when do we appoint the 2 council members? Is that this year or is it next year?
No, it's within the next couple of months, I believe. Yeah, it would be before the first of the year, as I understand it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Planning and zoning staff right now is going through laying the groundwork to get the process in place and start going through. We want to be up and going by the end of the year is our goal.
So you volunteer?
Well, I don't mind volunteering, but I just think that my area is not growing a whole lot, so, I mean, so I would defer to Joe and Matt,
I was
but,
gonna say, are you looking down here
yeah,
at
I'm
us?
looking down there.
Any other questions? Or-
The other thing to think about, and it wasn't mentioned, but real estate cycle. I got a real estate background, so I got to go back to it, but in former lives, several lives ago. But the real estate cycle is people ask the question, well, how much land do we really have? How much developable ground? And it's a great question. There's no solid answer to that because we just don't know internally what that's going to be. But there is a real estate cycle that is ongoing. It's continuous. And so once developable green ground is developed, there is potential for redevelopment. The redevelopment can occur. There are older subdivisions in older areas that may be prime real estate to redevelop in some way. We don't know that, but you have to anticipate potential for those types of things. There's going to be, I think about Mid-Rivers Mall. We see what's happening in Chesterfield with Chesterfield Mall. There may be a push, it's in the city, but there may be a push for really dense kind of development to occur there. And that could impact development and things that happen around there. You just never know. Frankly, luckily the Mid-Rivers Mall is still a good, doing pretty well for a mall. But you just don't know how long that'll go. So you have to try to plan for things like that. We certainly couldn't plan for the pandemic and inflation that came because of federal government flooding the economy with cash. Nobody anticipated the housing market rising as fast as it did. The county executive mentioned the starter homes. I did a search. There are 5 houses, 5 in St. Charles County right now that are under $250,000. 5. That used to be well above the starter market. I mean, he's absolutely right. There's no way anybody has a starter market right now. And so people ask, why are the multifamily going? That's a big reason. Now, multifamily has fallen off. The last year it was 22% down from the previous year, and currently year to date it's 36% down. But it's still there. And so there has to be responses in the economy to those types of pushes. So again, these are all in our head as we're trying to figure this out and work forward, but we look forward to working with you on that process.
Any other questions? Okay.
John?
Yes, John.
Mike, I think it was on one of the slides, but can you remind us of the single-family homes permits? I think it was from 2010. What percentage of single-family homes built in St. Charles County were done in unincorporated areas versus municipalities?
So I came here in 2016, so we didn't have a breakdown of the single-family permits like we do now. So I wasn't able to go beyond 2017, but since 2017, the single-family numbers of all the permits, St. Charles County, the unincorporated county, accounts for 9% on average of all the permits being developed. Multifamily is 0. The county just doesn't have any 0. We did have 185 in our permit count, but that was actually Weldon Spring. And because we do the permitting for Weldon Spring, they showed up as ours. But that's just how it is. That's about what our breakdown is in the last 6-7 years.
Mike, are you expecting to see fewer single-family and more multifamily as a breakdown? Like you're down to 957, 1312. Are you expecting that to be more of a 50-50 type number? Or are you expecting the single-family to come back?
Yeah, I think single-family, I see single-family in St. Charles County as always being the driver. I think that's what the preference is. Multifamily has kicked up because of a number of factors, but I don't see it surpassing single-family. Now, something else happens and kicks up the economy in such a weird way that we don't anticipate, you never know. But that's not how I see it.
Anyone else? Okay, I really want to thank the administration for the presentation. Hopefully, we had some questions answered and have a little bit better understanding of this whole master plan process. All right, we will take about an 8 or 9 minute break here, and then we'll come back at 7 o'clock for the regular county council meeting. Okay.
Do I don't know. As much as St. Louis City and St. Louis County come down, we didn't get any comments from the tax. But I had, my district, all those apartments. Because we don't know who's traffic.
No. He was asking, are we going to take public comment? And I'm like, yeah.
But doesn't the city already accommodate most of that? Not every city. I mean, Darney, Prairie.
Gee.
Okay, I want to welcome you folks to the St. Charles County Council meeting of Monday, September the 11th. We will begin the meeting with a invocation by Corporal Barry Bales, the Public Information Officer for St. Charles County, the Police Department, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Matt Swanson. Please stand.
Before we pray, let us have a moment of silence in recognition of the 22nd year anniversary of September 11th. Thank you. Let us pray. God, we thank you this evening for your goodness, your grace, God, that is evident every day in our lives. We're asking you, God, at this special time and season, for your blessing, your peace, God, upon family members, God, who lost loved ones, God, and those close to them, God, 22 years ago, that you would bring an encouragement and a healing to their lives. We ask you for a protection, God, a guidance and a grace upon our first responders, as well as our military men and women around the world, as they stand on the line, God, and continue to provide protection and security for us, God, that we might have, God, safe gatherings, God, and meetings. Lord, we ask you for the peace of heaven, God, to come down upon this meeting tonight, guide the decisions and all those involved. God, in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Matt Swanson.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Brazel. Here. Councilmember Mike Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Terry Hollander.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Hammond.
Here.
Councilmember Nancy Schneider. Here. Councilmember Tim Baker.
Here.
First on the agenda tonight is a series of CUPs, starting with Bill number 5222.
Bill number 5222, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Tim Baker,
An ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 23-14 for an 88-foot telecommunications tower to Huster Holdings LLC property owners and Network Real Estate LLC applicant.
Mr. Meyer, please.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Hi, my name is Robert Myers. I'm the Planning and Zoning Division Director, and I'd like to give a short introduction for this case. Conditional use permit, 4112 Towers Road, and you may know that as the site of Country Lane Kennels, but it's on Towers Road near the intersection with Dingledine Road. Approval of this bill would authorize a conditional use permit to install a monopole communication tower, 88 feet in height. And just as a background, the applicant, the property is zoned currently R1E, Single Family Residential District. The applicant also has another application to rezone this property or a portion of this property on tonight's agenda, but not the entire tract, but instead about 10% of the parcel. So they're proposing to rezone a little less than 0.4 acres to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District, and that would be located back behind the Country Lane Kennels in order to accommodate this tower. So if this property would be rezoned C1 Neighborhood Commercial District, a tower would be allowed by right at a height of 85 feet, as long as it meets setbacks and separation distances. So the proposed tower, presuming this would be rezoned to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District, the proposed tower at 88 feet would meet the setback distances from property lines. It would meet the separation distance, but it'd be 3 feet too tall. In other words, the conditional use permit that's before you tonight, the way county staff review looks at it, is that they're asking for an additional 3 feet of height for a communication tower at this location. Exhibit B includes simulated images showing how the proposed tower would likely appear from several views in adjoining neighborhoods. And you should know also that the subject property includes mature trees, which would buffer most county staff's view of the proposed tower, and a site-proof fence would be installed in order to help hide from the ground level, hide the equipment at the base of the tower. The county council, the Planning and Zoning Commission, after the public hearing, voted 0 in approval and 6 for denial as a recommendation to the county council. Because of that vote, approval would require a minimum of 5 votes in the affirmative. And the Planning and Zoning Commission, Planning and Zoning Division, assuming that the property would be rezoned to C1 Neighborhood Commercial District, would recommend for approval with specific conditions that are suggested in the bill that's before you tonight. And we have here tonight Network Real Estate. Any representatives from Network Real Estate tonight? Great, thank you.
Matt, come forward, please.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Good evening. Thank you for letting us come tonight and speak before you guys. We previously have gone through the Planning and Zoning Commission process for both of these petitions that we have in front of you. This one right now, as I understand, this is for the CUP portion of it, and then we'll get into the conditional use portion of it later. Our company, Network Real Estate, represents AT&T Mobility. We basically are tasked to find a solution to a problem that they're having in the area around Towers Road where this proposed site is being petitioned. And that the concern, really, the main concern is to maintain the existing coverage that's been in that area for over 20 years. There's an existing site that is on it right now. We're currently located on a water tank just south of Towers Road. And we're trying to seek a more viable option. There's limitations with the equipment on that site. There's other factors at play that are out of my purview that are going on that I really don't have any other details on other than just that site is no longer viable for AT&T moving forward. So due to the fact that there are thousands of potentially impacted customers in this area, we are trying to come up with a solution to keep that service in the area. Without it, if this site should ever go down, which could happen really at any day now, then we're looking at other sites around that area trying to pick up the slack and cover this existing area, which I said is heavily, heavily densely populated. So that's what we're here before you tonight. This portion of it, the conditional use portion, is for the placement of the actual tower itself. It was mentioned that we're proposing an 88-foot structure. That's really for the setbacks. That's really as high as we can get with the location on the property that we're proposing, and maintain and keep in coordination with the zoning code to maintain our we call 1-for-1 setback, or basically the height of the proposed structure. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're looking for tonight. The presentation that we showed previously just kind of illustrates that. Again, requesting the conditional use permit and the rezoning, the small portion of the rezoning of the property, which we can get into that later. A couple main things to consider here. The reason why it's important to maintain the coverage in this area: 80% of calls on the emergency system are made on cell phone devices. I understand the county's currently going through a revamp and an upgrade of their E911 system, which just kind of plays hand in hand with what we're trying to maintain in that area to ensure that there's no lapse in coverage especially with the E911 system. Especially nowadays with everybody having cell phones and smartphones that they have, almost everybody in the country has at least a cell phone, and 85% of those people are smartphone users. That really goes into the need to maintain the service. It's no longer now just about voice communications. We have everything from text messages, video downloads, apps, what have you, smart devices that connect to these networks. And so as more and more devices come into market, it's even more paramount to maintain that service that exists right now. And then to also enhance it, because right now we're limited to the actual equipment that we can put in that area. And so this proposed site would allow us to upgrade and bring the latest technology that would be sustainable for the future. Next slide just gives you a little bit of information about the existing state of the networks. What I wanted to get to is this slide that relates to the FirstNet system, which will be a part of the new installation that's proposed at our location. This is part of the AT&T's proprietary network for first responders in the event that there's an emergency in the area, that will allow first responders to utilize a dedicated band to communicate between only first responders, which is yet another reason to maintain that service in the area, to allow for this service to be realized. And then that goes hand in hand with the county's Alert Me system, sending out text messages and alerts to residents. Again, having those antennas and that coverage in that area is really important to maintain and keep that service going. The map showing here the current zoning, a version of this was included with the reports that you guys should have received. What I wanted to highlight here is really the overall area. No matter where we go or where we would try to go, we would have to come before you and propose a rezoning of some sort. This area is completely zoned residential, and as such, in accordance with the county code, would require some sort of rezoning to happen. So after looking at all the available options that we consider for sites and leaning where we did, a rezoning was going to happen wherever we would have landed on this map. The highlight on this particular page is to show the existing sites to the east off of Cox Hill Road that currently have a very similar designation than what we're proposing tonight. And I think staff even acknowledges that in their report, that there's sites that are currently zoned, split commercial and residential, that have existing cell sites on them right now. One of them, actually, the one to the northeast there, is zone C2, and that actually is that's the next closest cell site for AT&T to the northeast. So you can imagine if this site goes down, the coverage hole that it would create, because we are a mile and a half away from the closest site there to the northeast. So I just wanted to highlight again that this is already in existence, what we're trying to propose. The key difference is the lots that currently exist off of Cox Hill are much smaller than the one that we have right now in terms of separation from homes, separation from boundary lines, things like that. So just wanted to make that designation with the current environment that exists with those existing split zone properties. Just to give you an idea of the site plan, this is the proposed layout for our location off of Towers. We've got at least a 1-for-1 setback maintained from all property lines, the key one being there to the west, which goes into the proposal for the height of 88 feet. Another key component is that there's no existing structures or buildings that, if in the event there was a failure within that 1-for-1 fall zone, that this would fall within too. And just to give you, you guys have seen those in your staff report, but again, just to reiterate, the surrounding area, underlying area with some of these aerial shots. Keep in mind, in accordance with the staff report, the staff found that this proposed CUP would not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding properties. Given the height that we're proposing, its location and the placement among the existing trees, would also not injure the aesthetic and the scenic views of the vicinity, and should not negatively impact the use and enjoyment of the neighboring properties. Again, that's coming from staff's findings in the area. So these next couple slides are just, again, some pictures of the existing property. I wanted to highlight an example of the proposed structure, which we call a standard galvanized monopole structure. This one's obviously taller than what we would propose. I will point out that as a condition, there are ways that we can try to disguise this, if that would help, with the aesthetic. I'm sure you guys are aware of the sites that look similar to trees and things like that, and given its location with the existing mature trees and the height, would be a good candidate for something like that to kind of help further hide the aesthetic view from the surrounding area. And in accordance with conversations with staff and the council, we went out and completed a photo simulation of a couple of views from the surrounding areas. The pictures were taken at the request of the commission because we were trying to get the view from back in the neighborhood areas. The first view is taken at the intersection of Wellsmont and Wellsmont Court. You really cannot see the structure itself due to the location, the distance, changes in the topography, things like that. So I just wanted to highlight here that with those mature trees, it helps kind of shield that view shed from back in the neighborhood. And then the other view that we took was off of Golden Wheat Drive. This one does show what we call the top of the proposed structure where the antenna mounts would be located, but for the vast majority of it, again, would be hidden from view shed from those surrounding properties in the area. And with that, I open up for questions.
Do we have any questions? Okay, we'll call you back if we need you. Okay, public comments?
Mary Alice Wright.
Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Chairman and members of the council, I'd like to start with a refresher of what transpired 2 years ago. Last year, Terry Hollander, District 5, voted in opposition to the rezoning of 4112 Towers Road from residential land to commercial land, which was to include a cell tower. Last year, the Planning and Zoning Commissioners unanimously voted to deny it. In fact, it never went to you guys as County Council because the applicant postponed a couple of different times and then eventually pulled the application. Now, just a few weeks ago, Tim Baker, District 7, voted to deny rezoning a smaller parcel on the same land. Again, Planning and Zoning unanimously voted to deny the application of the CUP, which would have added 3 feet to a non-existent cell tower. So far, out of 171 homeowners, we have 118 homeowners that are in opposition, and that's more than half of our neighborhoods. We only approached the people that actually opposed last year. We could have approached more, but we didn't because we already received a confirmation from Robert Myers that we've reached 30% remonstrance that is needed. Now, this slide is the artistically modified photo that was presented by AT&T taken from the lowest possible vantage point off of our Wellsmont subdivision. Doesn't look that significant, does it? I want to point out that AT&T has an existing cell tower located on the Missouri American Water Tower. And as AT&T previously shared, this service exists and has served our area for 20 years. We would like to show you what it would actually look like from our backyards, the 3-foot plus 5-foot lightning rod onto a cell tower in our backyards. Keep in mind that these are fully grown trees and tree coverage. Many homeowners' aesthetic and scenic views will change despite what the staff has stated in Exhibit B. These are the views from homes directly next door to Towers Road and Jacobs Station, which would be significantly impacted, regardless of the tree coverage. As you can see from the Google photo I pulled, it shows it doesn't hide the tower or the 3 feet. Why is Missouri American Water Tower no longer viable? AT&T can renew their agreement with Missouri American Water Tower. Why not renew? They keep saying, what if it goes away? It could go away at any minute. But why would it go away at any minute? We all have this cell service now, and we have experienced 0 problems with it. AT&T says it's no longer viable, meaning what? Viable? Is it money? Renewing the tower that's already in existence? Has AT&T proven a coverage gap due to the supposedly outdated equipment? Update the equipment if they're so worried about losing the coverage. We haven't, like I said, experienced any problems, and we also have 5G right now. Has AT&T provided a meaningful comparison of various alternate sites? We haven't seen any other options presented other than AT&T has a single resident who is willing to lease a small sliver of her land to support a 3-foot add-on.
I know they did.
Has an unbiased engineering study been conducted regarding the alternate locations? I haven't seen anything, but maybe we don't deserve seeing it. We doubt AT&T has looked at other possibilities. I mean, why go through the effort of looking at alternate sites when they have, right now, one single resident who is happy to lease a small sliver of her land to accommodate AT&T's 3-foot addition? This is the view from Towers Road, and those are the trees, which, by the way, those trees can grow up to 40 to 80 feet in height at the maximum. Also, please note that these trees will lose their leaf coverage, and they will not hide the 3-foot add-on from our yards. This is St. Philippines Cemetery. It's located directly across from the proposed site on Towers Road. It's at the same elevation, in fact, from that sidewalk. I also put in an aerial view so you can see the entire St. Philippines grounds. This and other identified areas in the following slides are alternate locations in the same general area. Again, why is the third 3-foot add-on being considered on one residential landowner's property, and when there's so many of us that are living in that area that are against it? Another location just down the street, less than 900 feet, is the Ameren substation. I showed a street view and an aerial view, so you can see all the land around it. Why is this location not being considered? Another alternate location, which is less than a mile away from us, is Veterans Tribute Park. Now, Tim Baker asked about this location with AT&T at the last time we met at the Planning and Zoning meeting. And AT&T's response was this, pulled from the notes. It is outside the service area, and when AT&T determines alternate sites, they will have to give heavy consideration to a willing landowner. Regarding the fall zones, or otherwise known as setbacks, we have concerns for the safety of our community, and we would like to see a more responsible fall zone. Not so long ago, our neighborhoods experienced a tornado sweeping through it, leaving extensive damage in the wake. If a 3-foot add-on was to be blown over to our properties and the damage would be significant, and it could kill. It's that close. Imagine this scenario. A cell tower, catches fire with winds gusting up to 50 miles an hour, and we have that happen in our area, even stronger. The 3 addition add-on would probably fly past the proposed fly zone or fall zone setback and land on one of our homes. The fire isn't going to continue, this fire is going to continue to spread until the utility cuts the power. And realistically, that could take 10 minutes to 1 hour for a utility company to shut down that electrical fire. Residential neighborhoods need stronger protection from electrical fires caused by all wireless installations so that people have time to escape if there is a fire on one of our homes. Please, we beg you, each of you, to please deny this bill of 5222, Cup 2314. Thank you for your consideration and time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Emma Ernst. Do you solemnly swear that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Hi. Chairman and members of the council. For 2 years in a row, myself and many of my neighbors have stood in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission to speak out against the construction of this cell tower on the property next to my home. I've talked about how my fiance and I were brand new homeowners, right out of college, and super proud of the purchase of our first house. We bought our house with our future family in mind. We envisioned coming home to this house after our wedding and carrying newborns through the front door. We've lived in our house for about a year now, and for half that time, we've been fighting this uphill battle against the proposed commercialization and telecommunication tower next to our house. I hope that you all can see that your decision is bigger than land use and cell phone coverage. Your decision impacts real people and real families in St. Charles County. My family and so many others have worked hard, we've made sacrifices, and we've gone through hell to earn our place in our neighborhood. The proposed plan set forth by AT&T shows an 88-foot monopole surrounded by ground-level equipment encased in a 12-foot tall fence. This tower would be visible from my kitchen, my living room, my driveway, and my backyard. As Mary Alice said, the photos that were presented to you by AT&T were taken from the lowest possible vantage point in our neighborhood. There would be a gravel turnaround, and a portion of the sidewalk would have to be altered in order to accommodate a concrete driveway access on Towers Road. People in our neighborhood walk along Towers all the time with their pets and their young kids in strollers. This plan would create a huge eyesore in our neighborhood, and it would significantly impact the aesthetic value of surrounding homes, even if they try to disguise it as a tree. In addition, it is well documented in scientific literature that cell towers can decrease property values of surrounding houses. Research from around the country supports a decline in home values from 2.65% to 9.78%. This is based on the proximity to the telecommunication tower and the visibility of the tower from people's homes. 3 additional feet to this proposed tower could be detrimental to the property value of my home, which shares 2 lot lines with the property that we're talking about. Even on the low side, if just 100 neighboring homes with a property value of $400,000 declined by just 2.5%, lost market value could be as much as $1 million. My fiance and I have worked our entire adult lives to achieve our goal of owning a house. Decreasing our home value for the financial gain of one property owner and a huge corporation like AT&T is not acceptable. Regardless of what the representatives from AT&T are stating, a telecommunication tower would not enhance our area. It would simply devalue our properties and diminish the quality of our neighborhood. This applicant is insinuating that the people who live in this area are in need of more 5G coverage, and that's their justification for this 3 additional feet that we're talking about. The people sitting behind me are the residents that he's referring to, and we're satisfied with our current coverage. We have people who use AT&T, we have people who work from home, we have 5G coverage, and we haven't experienced these gaps in coverage that he's referring to. I understand that the coverage could be limited by the lease on the water tower expiring, but as a neighborhood, we're here to request that an alternative location be pursued. We're here tonight because we do not want or need an 88-foot cell tower next door to our homes. References have also been made to Cox Hill, which is 1.3 miles away from us and has always been a very heavy mix of commercial and residential uses, and that's nothing like the atmosphere that you would find in our neighborhood. I'd like to remind you that the Planning and Zoning Commission has recommended that you deny this conditional use permit tonight. I know we're only talking about the additional 3 feet right now, but approving this permit would send a message that you're condoning the construction of a cell tower in our neighborhood. Please vote no to CUP 2314 and help us protect our homes and our families. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's the final speaker.
Final speaker. Okay. Is there any questions from anyone on the council for the applicant or Mr. Myers? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the second CUP, which is Bill number 5223.
Bill number 5223, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Jill Brazel, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 23-17 for a storage yard for recreational vehicles, boats, trailers, and trucks to Arthur Wildschutz, Dorothy Wildschutz, and Omer Wildschutz, property owners, and T&D Outside Storage LLC applicant.
Mr. Myers.
Like the last application, there are 2 applications before you here tonight. There's a rezoning application and a conditional use permit. And we're talking about the conditional use permit first. The location is at intersection of Highway D and T in the southwest corner of the county. Although there's no utilities at that location, there's a log standing, there's a couple of commercial land uses there. There's a tavern, a convenience store, and I think a repair shop. So the master plan recommends at that intersection a small commercial node, despite it not being served by sanitary sewer service, but it still recognizes that it's like a commercial crossroads, or recommended commercial crossroads. The 8-acre parcel that we're talking about is actually already zoned partly commercial. It's split zoned, agricultural and commercial. So the proposal is to rezone the entire 8 acres for C2 General Business District. And again, getting back to the conditional use permit, approve a conditional use permit for outdoor storage yard for RVs, boats, trucks, and trailers. About 488 parking stalls is the concept plan that's before you here tonight as one of your exhibits. What's interesting is they're proposing underground stormwater storage. Typically, you'll see like surface stormwater, but they're proposing here to store stormwater underground. And along highways D and T, they're proposing a setback sufficient that once MoDOT, whenever they're ready, whenever they need to buy additional right-of-way, it would not impact their operation. That's what's proposed. So they have a sufficient setback. They're proposing a chain link fence as security to surround the property 2 key entrances, and then along the roadway frontages, they would have a landscape buffer with trees in order to help, in order to buffer the views from highways D and T. I would also mention that because of that commerce that's already there, it could be seen as somewhat complementary. I can imagine people gassing up, for instance, to go out with their boats and RVs, and providing business for that existing gas station there. The Planning and Zoning Commission held a public hearing on August 16th, and after which holding a public hearing, they recommended 6 in favor and 0 for denial. So the Planning and Zoning Division likewise recommends approval with specific conditions to address land use impacts that are suggested in the bill that's before you tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Is the applicant here?
Do we have anyone from T&D Outdoor Storage or the Wild Shoots is here tonight?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Seeing none, does anyone on the council have any questions for Mr. Myers?
Just
Yes.
once more. Do we have the proposed entrance and exit off of this storage lot?
It's shown in the concept plan, but it may not be, jump out at you. There's on the very eastern end, there's an entrance that would, next to the home. That's one location. And I'm trying to remember the other location, I'm sorry, but there's 2.
So it'd be before you get to Highway T then?
Yeah,
So before the bar there, I guess that would be to the east.
right, yeah,
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
sure.
All right. That ends the discussion on bill number 5223. I don't believe there's the tabled conditional use permit will stay on the table. So the next thing is public comments. Want to remind the folks that you need to fill out a speaker's card. We will accept 3 speakers for, 3 speakers against on any particular topic, and you will be limited to 3 minutes, and that clock will be right there. Claire?
Mary Alice Wright.
I had a PowerPoint too. I don't know. Let me see if I can pull it up. Sorry. Here we go. My mouse was out of control. Is that opening it? Oh, there it is. It's not showing up. I don't know why.
There it is.
Oh, it is? Oh, good. I don't know why it's showing. Okay, good. All right. Chairman and members of the council, this bill directly affects the 171 families that live in our subdivisions of Towers Ridge, Lakeview Farms, Wellsmont, Horseshoe Creek, Towers Road, Jacobs Crossing. So far, we have 118 of 171 homeowners that are opposed. That's more than half of our residents, and we only asked the ones that were in opposition last year. The Master Plan of 2030 depicts future land use as low-density residential. This was the county's vision for us. This area represents the 1,000-foot radius that will be affected by the rezoning if allowed to pass. But more importantly to us, it also represents families, children, pets, wildlife, peacefulness, safety, and green space. While the applicant states that they changed their wishes to satisfy our neighborhood's concerns for the rezoning last year, this is not completely accurate. AT&T states that they were keeping the green space. Yes, that was nice. But more importantly, we do not want C1 commercial space within our neighborhood. For AT&T, this is actually the most cost-effective and easiest way for them to do what they want to do on this land. Regardless of us, and some of us have lived in our homes for more than 25 years. So you have one single landowner who, by the way, doesn't even live on the property, wanting to lease a small sliver of her land to benefit herself to the detriment of her neighbors. I can't blame her. It's a nice retirement plan. Your own staff stated that if allowed to rezone, many other uses for C1 district would be actually impractical, if not possible, due to the limited size. This, too, is not completely accurate. There are many other businesses that could be built in that small space, but regardless, who is going to purchase a residence with a cell tower on it? The AT&T lease cannot be transferred to another homeowner if she sells. What about the 10 years from now when the equipment is no longer needed due to the satellite coverage? Who's going to remove this equipment if it's obsolete, which again puts our neighborhood at risk of commercialization? P&Z staff stated that rezoning on such a small land raises concerns about creating a precedent, which invites land use conflicts.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate your comments.
Emma Ernst.
I don't know how to close that.
I'm in opposition to Bill 5224, which would allow commercial zoning in our residential neighborhood. I've lived in a lot of different places in my young adult life, and I've never really had the sense of community that our neighborhood provides. The people in our neighborhood, they host pool parties, barbecues, they run after dark, and their kids play in the street. Our neighborhood is safe, and the people who live there look out for each other. Neighborhoods like ours are becoming less and less common these days, and that's why we chose to start our family there. This application threatens the very atmosphere that drew us to our home in the first place. We would not have purchased our home if it was next to commercialized land. I find it very hard to believe that the house that sits on that property would ever be used residentially again after a portion of the land is commercialized and a cell tower is built in the front yard. Commercialized land brings unwanted risk, and now I have concerns about the safety of my future kids. Would they have a safe yard to play in, or would there be increased traffic, strangers, noise and light pollution, and a cell tower looming over their heads? The proposed commercial neighborhood zoning is not appropriate for this property, as it is surrounded by residential communities that are more than 25 years old. County staff reported that this property doesn't have the appropriate frontage to an arterial road, so it doesn't qualify as a neighborhood business center and does not meet the requirements for neighborhood commercial zoning. While county staff stated in their report that a portion of this property being petitioned for rezoning is most likely too small to support other commercial activity, there's actually a lot of other potential commercial uses. For example, a Scooter's Coffee requires only 2,000 square feet of land, which is less than 0.05 acres. A traffic study done by an engineering firm shows that a drive-through Scooters can generate up to 1,000 customers a day. There are other allowed uses under the neighborhood commercial designation, such as fast food or vape shops, that could also reside on even this small piece of commercialized property. This would all be added traffic through our residential area and pose a safety risk to our community. Putting the commercialization aspect aside, my fiance and I refuse to go through pregnancy, start a family, raise kids 200 feet away from a cell tower. Researchers have found a link between increased cancer rates from these towers, and especially in children and other vulnerable populations. The Federal Communications Commission regulates this exposure, but those regulations haven't been updated since 1996, and they do not consider the unique vulnerability of young children and infants. Although the health concerns of living near a cell tower may be outside of the county's purview, they are not outside of mine. Any potential health risk to myself or my family is enough for me to do all I can to protect my neighborhood. We love where we live, but if this application was approved, we would not want to continue to live in our house or start our family there. This decision would run my family and other young families out of our neighborhood. Although the FCC regulations are outside of the scope of local jurisdictions, you do have the authority to influence the location of any tower on any property in the county.
Thank you, ma'am.
Eldon Shodel.
Yes, sir.
Bless you.
You won't have to do that for
You
public
don't get
comment.
sworn in.
Hello.
Hi.
I live in St. Charles County. My name's Don Shodell. I've been here 7 years. I want to comment on the state legislature and the governor's recommendation to you regarding freezing of property taxes for elderly people in St. Charles County. I understand you're going to be voting on that tonight. I thought I'd just point out a couple of facts to you that I've observed in my 7 years living here. First of all, we all experienced the pandemic, right? We also know that it has driven house prices through the roof. And as you know, the property tax is based on the valuation of your property. And it is a market-based valuation that's conducted every 2 years. My valuation in 2023 increased 34% in a 2-year period. No improvements to the home, little 3-bedroom house in St. Charles County, and it's a function of the aberration of the market. And there are other things that affect markets similarly over time, and I think market-based valuations are a really poor way to create a tax base. I guess my point would be that, I think you should approve Bill 5221, but the point is that the valuation to which you're going to be holding us to is inflated. It's inflated due to the pandemic and the aberration in the market. And so you're bringing us back, you're going to hold us down to a tax rate that is reflective of this higher valuation that was created by the pandemic. I suppose it will serve to offset some of the expense associated with losing tax revenue. But the point is that it's not a gimme. You're bringing us back to a level that is inflated. Based on my experience in the last 7 years, I have had 3 opportunities where I received a tax bill. There's a process you can go through if you think the valuation is wrong, and you can, go and make a presentation informally. In all 3 of those cases, my valuation was lowered. And isn't that wonderful? But what I say is thanks, but no thanks. What it says is the process is flawed. The arguments I brought forward had no bearing on the lowering of my property value. The person I talked to in 3 different instances, 3 different people, lowered my valuation based on a quick look at the data that was in front of them. The problem is I don't believe the valuation process at all. And I think it's flawed. And I asked myself, how many people in St. Charles County might not have gone and challenged their valuation over the last 6 years?
Thank you,
How
sir.
many elderly people did?
3 minutes is up, sir. Thank you.
You get my point.
You
Yes,
sure
sir.
do.
All right, thank you.
Alan Schwendeman.
This has, how y'all doing?
Just fine.
Has nothing to do with anything that's being voted on tonight or anything. It's about the Great Oaks Boulevard that the city of Wentzville is trying to put through our property. The Piney Farm recently been informed. It's a heritage farm, been in the family for over 100 years in unincorporated St. Charles County. We received information from a Jim Hedledge, attorney for Lashley Bauer, who is representing the city of Wentzville in the Great Oaks case. He claims now he's representing St. Charles County and having the county file for condemnation. The project is estimated at $160 million. St. Charles County will pay, estimate $1.28 million, and the sponsor only pay $320,000. The road would not benefit the county, just making it more convenient for 200-plus houses from Timber Trace to get to the city of Wentzville. This road would be separating 12 acres off of an 80-acre field, which the city claims that we can develop, which we do not want to, and putting a detention pond in, which does not run to the creek. It'll just end up in the middle of our field, eroding the field, which they say that will be responsible for the erosion. That's not counting the trash from the road that we have to pick up and stuff. My question is, has the county retained Jim Hetledge from Lashley Bauer? And why is the county siding with the city of Winsville if there's no tax revenue for the county? Who else could, whichever other committee could have a hand in decisions about this with the county without the council's approval? Those are just my statements.
Thank you, sir.
It's the final speaker.
Okay. All right, that concludes, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to move Bill 5221 on the agenda next.
Okay,
Second.
do I have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that means that bill number 5221 is now on the floor. Would you please read the title?
Bill number 5221, an ordinance establishing a new Article 11 of Chapter 140 of the Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, enacting, developing, and administering a program to effectuate a property tax credit for certain eligible taxpayers on their homesteads within St. Charles County, Missouri, and authorizing intergovernmental agreements to operate a reporting program in conjunction with other cooperating Missouri counties.
Okay, questions or comments on Bill 5221? Mr. Brass.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Roy. Roy, thanks for going through this. I had somebody send me the Camden County ordinance, and some of the questions they had were, I thought, worth the conversation, but I appreciate your evaluation. It was done well. I do believe our ordinance is pretty sufficient. It does what it needs to do with what we have handed to us by the state. Also, you know, you hear some people there were some folks that wrote letters saying that it's not fair that we're giving tax cuts to the seniors because everyone should get them across the board. I would have a tendency to agree with that. However, if there's tax credits or tax abatements or reductions offered to seniors, I think it's a good thing. I think it's a great thing. And I did have some complaints in the last couple of years with the high increases in the evaluations of the houses. And I agree with that gentleman who made that comment. He made some really good points. But yeah, so it runs some of these folks who are on fixed incomes. It makes them very hard to live in their houses that they're living in. So I think hopefully this will help, and it'll pass. And I appreciate the council. You guys did a good job of putting it all together.
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I'm just really happy that St. Charles County has taken a lead on this issue. And I know, Matt, you made the comment about us taking the lead, and I appreciate that. And I thank the administrative staff and Mr. Elman and Rory and everyone else putting this together and getting in front of us in a timely fashion. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Mr. County
Yeah, I would
Executive.
simply add to Mr. Brazel's comment about valuation. I don't like it either. A lot of people don't like it, but that is something that's in state statute. It says we have to do it that way, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, every 2 years. And I mean, so if you don't like the way it's done, you need to talk to your folks who go to Jefferson City, because I think the statute requires us to do it the way we're doing it. The only other thing, I'll just repeat what I said last time, and that is we read this, we spent a lot of time looking at it, spent a lot of time listening to you all and your comments and what you'd like to do. But the clincher was when we went and talked to the legislators and asked them, what did you intend when you passed this bill? And I think that the bill we came up with reflects their intent, and a couple of you were there, and what we're trying to do here is fulfill their intent by passing this ordinance. Now, when it gets in front of a judge, you know, the judge is going to read it, he's going to see what it says. He's not going to be interested in what they say they intended, he's going to look at what they wrote. But as I told them that day, they're elected officials, we're elected officials. We wanted to know what they thought that this bill could do, and I think we're going to fulfill their intent, and I hope that y'all will pass this.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Bill number 5221, an ordinance establishing a new Article 11 of Chapter 140 of the Ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, enacting, developing, and administering a program to effectuate a property tax credit for certain eligible taxpayers on their homesteads within St. Charles County, Missouri, and authorizing intergovernmental agreements to operate a reporting program in conjunction with other cooperating Missouri counties. Councilmember Swanson?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Okay. Bill 5221 passes. We will now return to our normal agenda. Is there a report? Is a report from the county executive?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, next up is the consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
I'm trying to find it. The professional service for St. Charles County Bike Walk, Phase 1.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that particular item has been removed from the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda?
Motion to approve is amended?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we move back to Mr. Baker's
I
question.
guess I've got a question.
John, are you going to have?
Thuvno, Wade, and Martha, TWM is an Illinois firm, or they're headquartered in Illinois, and just back in January, I think it was this year, I'd asked them why they didn't submit on a proposal for Hepperman Road, and they said they were too busy. So I think if a firm doesn't want to do work with us, or is too busy to submit back in January, I think they're too busy to do it now. So I would be voting that, first off, I think we can find a St. Charles County. I know they have an office in St. Charles County, but their headquarters in Illinois, and that's where they do a majority of their work. So I'd like to see we keep this work in St. Charles County, so.
Amanda? Sure.
I'll just comment that we had 6 qualified firms apply for this work, and it is based on a qualified, qualifying judgment. So we scored the projects, and TWM did come out on top.
Who in the county makes the decision?
So it varies by what the project is, but this was out of my department. So it was myself, my project manager, and then the project is in Wentzville, O'Fallon, and Lake St. Louis. So we gave somebody from each of those cities an opportunity to also judge. So TWM did come out on top. They do a lot of bike ped type work, and we felt that they were very qualified for what we were trying to accomplish
I'm
with
sure
this
they're
job.
qualified. I guess the rub for me is that they were too busy to submit a proposal back in January, so, on a different project, and now.
Yeah, and
they're
that would
not
have been a
busy.
highway department project, so I am not, familiar, but I can't speak to
But
that.
they are headquartered in Illinois, is that correct?
I believe so.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Mr.
How many St. Charles County firms was part of that process of 6?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I honestly am unsure. There were several that have multiple offices, but I don't know that there was maybe one that's actually headquartered in St. Charles County.
On the scoring system, do they get any kind of evaluation with higher points for being local?
So we give points for accessibility. So if they have a local office, that is where those come into play. But as far as headquarters, we generally don't do much for that.
Any other comments? Okay.
Terry, one thing.
Yes.
Amanda said one, on the information in your packet, there's 3 that listed St. Charles locations. They're not their headquarters. Of the 6, so there's Cole & Associates that has a St. Charles office. George Butler and Associate, which has a St. Charles office. Their headquarters is in Lenexus, Kansas. And then Horner Schifrin has a St. Charles office, but they're also downtown St. Louis. So there's essentially I guess, Cole & Associates, that would only be the one that has a headquarters in St. Charles that applied out of the 6.
Okay. Do I have a motion to?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
All right.
Mr.
That
Chairman?
moves us,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
Before you move out of the consent agenda, I know you moved quickly over it, but I just wanted to point out that tonight you awarded our K-9 tank to Officer Spies, and to express appreciation. This dog is renowned throughout the county. I don't know whether the chief wants to speak to it, but this dog has found a lot of people and saved a lot of people, and has done yeoman's work and been hurt in the line of duty. So,
Yes.
No, it's not cheap.
Chief, fill us in on the K-9 hero here, that's great.
Yeah, actually, K-9, Tank has been a great asset to this community and our department over the last 7 years or so. Solely responsible for locating missing children, elderly people, and suspects hiding. Tank is the pure tracking dog, and we do look to replace Tank with the same breed and hope we have the same success. But Tank has had 2 ruptured discs, because tracking is a very physically demanding job. So Tank is recovering from his 2nd ruptured disc surgery, and hopefully will live a life at home with his Courtney Spies, his handler, and have a long retirement. But appreciate your consideration in awarding it to Officer Spies.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes. Right. Okay, now we move to resolutions. We have one resolution, number 23-06.
Resolution 23-06, sponsored by council as a whole, a resolution recognizing September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week in St. Charles County, Missouri. Whereas the St. Charles chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution has been in existence since 1909 and currently consists of 178 members. And whereas this chapter has a Constitution Week committee with goals to preserve the past, enhance the present, and invest in the future. And whereas the Daughters of the American Revolution aim to educate all citizens, especially the youth and newly naturalized citizens, about our founding documents and encourage all in the community to protect and defend the Constitution. And whereas the Daughters of the American Revolution started a tradition of celebrating Constitution Week many years ago. And whereas in 1955, the Daughters of the American Revolution conveyed a petition to Congress to dedicate September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. And whereas the United States Congress adopted such a resolution and President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed Public Law 915 on August the 2nd, 1956, to establish such an observation. And whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. And whereas during this time we remember that the Constitution is a living document that guarantees the freedoms Americans enjoy. Now therefore be it resolved by the County Council of St. Charles County, Missouri as follows. Section 1, the St. Charles County Council hereby proclaims the week of September the 17th through the 23rd, 2023 as Constitution Week in St. Charles County, Missouri. Section 2, the St. Charles County Council hereby further urges citizens to reaffirm the ideals that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting those freedoms guaranteed to us through the Constitution, which serves as a guardian of our liberties.
Okay, I do believe we have some folks here that are representing the Constitution Week. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I thought they were coming with me.
Oh, yeah, I've been.
She turned around and they left you hanging.
They
Come
left
on up,
me.
ladies.
Here they come.
Thank you
Give you a
very
little, give you a little backing there.
We'd like to thank the council for this proclamation. Back in 1787 at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in Philadelphia on September the 17th, the church bells rang. So this Sunday, when you're watching the football game or mowing the lawn, at 4 o'clock, think about our Constitution and how we can continue to honor this tremendous document that is the basis of our government. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate, I just one point, I say this every year, I taught American history for 34 years. I also have a fellow social study teacher on the dais up here with me this year, and we certainly appreciate what you do, and especially calling attention to our Constitution during this week. please.
Yes, I just also wanted to thank you ladies for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terry, if
Yes.
I may, as a Sons of the American Revolution member,
Yes.
which we have our meeting tonight, which I can never attend because I'm here at the county council. I wish we could have brought some of our SAR members, but it's been great working with you guys, and we get out there and do the youth programs, and if anybody who's paying attention, we have a lot of youth programs, the poster contest, the brochure contest, and everything else. My student last year made it all the way to Florida for the brochure contest. She did not win.
Did you get to go with her?
No.
Okay.
Got to work on
But
that.
it's really great because we do need to bring this back up into our schools and really
Yes,
advocate for it,
definitely.
because that is our founding document that needs to be learned.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Please call the roll.
A resolution recognizing September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week in St. Charles County, Missouri. Councilmember Brazel?
Yes.
Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Councilmember Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Swanson?
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 23-06 passes, and we thank you ladies again. Bills for final passage now, starting with bill number 5219.
Bill number 5219, an ordinance authorizing execution of an intergovernmental agreement relating to the donation, maintenance, and operation of certain license plate readers and pan, tilt, zoom camera systems between St. Charles County and the city of Weldon Spring.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
An ordinance authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement relating to the donation, maintenance, and operation of certain license plate readers and pan, tilt, zoom camera systems between St. Charles County and the city of Weldon Spring. Councilmember Elam?
Yes.
Councilmember Hollander?
Yes.
Councilmember Hammond?
Yes.
Councilmember Schneider?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilmember Baker? Councilmember Swanson?
Yes.
Councilmember Brazel?
No.
Okay. Bill number 5219 passes. Next, we move to bills for introduction, beginning with bill number 5224.
Bill number 5224, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Tim Baker, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from R1E, Single Family Residential District, to C1, Neighborhood Commercial District, per application RZ 23-12.
Okay, questions or comments on this particular bill? All right. Seeing none, we move on to bill number 5225.
Bill number 5225, requested by Michael Herbert, sponsored by Jill Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District and C1 Neighborhood Commercial District to C2 General Commercial District per application RZ 23-11.
Questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we move on to bill number 5227. 5026, I'm sorry.
Bill number 5226, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Tim Baker, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from C2 General Commercial District to R3B Multifamily Residential District per application RZ 23-13.
Questions or comments on 5226? Seeing none, we move on to bill number 5227.
Bill number 5227, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Jill Brazel, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District to C2 General Commercial District per application RZ 23-14.
Questions, comments on bill 5227? Seeing none, we move on to bill 5228 for introduction.
Bill number 5228, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Matt Swanson, an ordinance amending ordinance number 07-084, granting conditional use permit number 681 for a lawn care service to Matt Voss and Denise Voss, property owners, and Matthew A. Voss Jr. for Bluegrass Lawn Care.
Questions, comments? Mr.
Is the
Swanson?
applicant present? Mr. Voss?
Don't
Okay, I'll track him down later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? 5228. Okay, next up is bill number 5229.
Bill number 5229, requested by Michael Hurlbert, sponsored by Mike Elam, an ordinance authorizing execution of an agreement relating to St. Charles County's Urban County Community Development Block Grant Program, or Urban County CDBG Program, namely a 2023 subrecipient agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Peters to operate and run the city's CDBG programs and services.
Questions or comments on 5229? Seeing none, final bill for introduction is Bill number 5230.
Bill number 5230, requested by Tracy Bain, sponsored by Terry Hollander, an ordinance fixing and establishing the rate and levying of taxes for the General Revenue Fund and for various special funds of and for the County of St. Charles, Missouri for the year 2023.
Questions or comments? Okay. Seeing none, we have announcements and miscellaneous. Anyone have any announcements that they would like to make?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you, folks. Appreciate it.